I want him to explore and fail and achieve and learn from that and really learn it. I mean, actually make mistakes and learn from those mistakes and be allowed to make those mistakes, which isn't really allowed in the school systems.
Do all kinds of leadership stuff, and I work for the Grace Harbor College Associated Students Student Government.
My name is Greg Taylor, obviously her husband, and I'm really into sustainable gardening, sustainable technology in general, urban livestock, and I'm a professional student.
Woo!
Yeah.
Tell me about your kid.
Our son is Alexander William Taylor. He's 5 years old. Yeah, he's a good kid. He's crazy.
Is he currently in school?
He is not. We withdrew him in April?
In March.
In March. He's an ADHD kid and just doesn't do very well in the public system. So we yanked him out. Thank you.
Unschooling seems to me to be like the best option for our child. While he's in public school, he wasn't learning the things that they expected him to learn, and so we want to focus more on real-life application of education for him.
Greg, who is pitching you crap in your life about unschooling?
Everybody. My parents are adamantly against it. I've talked to dozens of fellow students who are adamantly against it. Of course, I'm an education major, so it seems absolutely wrong for me to go against the grain, if you will, and take my kid out of public school. But I think a lot of it is an apprehension because there's a lot of fear. People don't understand it. It defies the system. It defies the status quo and the standard that society has set, and people don't like that.
So it sounds like there's in your community there's some people that are giving you some pushback, but you're going ahead anyway.
Yes.
How come?
We want to do what's best for our son and for our family overall. You know, at the end of the day, at the end of life, I want to know that I've done what's best for my family and what's best for my son.
Greg, why does unschooling have what's best for your family, what's best for your son? What are you expecting to get out of it?
Honestly, to be fair, I don't know that it does. I'm fascinated by the concept. I'm fascinated by the difference in the way that you teach a child. Allowing the child to actually have influence upon what they learn is a fascinating concept. And as well as being an education major, I've also taken a lot of psychology classes, and one thing we always talk about is that kids don't develop the same. They do not have certain days when certain things happen. They don't just understand math because it's the day they're supposed to understand math. It just doesn't work like that. And unschooling allows you to really focus on the individual child's development as well as their personal desires to teach them. And it's a hell of a lot easier to teach a kid when he wants to learn something than when you're cramming it down their throat. So why not just work with the way they're going to grow naturally?
I think unschooling is awesome. I've been unschooled for until I was 3 and I'm 9 yet now. I'm trying to put this down.
Yeah, you slap this end in and then pull the tab out and then it slaps down.
Then you can pull the tab in to lock it.
Yeah, or not. Not that big of a deal.
So unschooling I think is pretty cool because you can stay with your family. But schooling gives your family more time to work so you can make more money.
What do you think about that, Taylors?
I think we're pretty poor already and we're comfortable with our lifestyle. We do a lot of different things to maintain our lifestyle so that we're not financially stressed at any point.
Don't clap when you're talking. Greg.
I can simply say that money doesn't matter to me. I don't care. I've never been happier in my life than when I didn't have any. So what's the point in pursuing getting rich when it doesn't really make you happy, it just makes you miserable? Honestly, I don't know that there's any aspect of it that doesn't work. I think the hardest part is learning to take responsibility for your own children and to embrace the things that other people were previously handling. I mean, the standard in public school is to send your kid off to school, let them supposedly learn what they have to know in life, and somebody else does all that. So when you're a parent, you're no longer a teacher. And the thing I like about the unschooling so much is that you are the teacher. You have to be the teacher. But that's also a difficult role to assume when you have not assumed that role really full-time previously. I mean, you've assumed it to a degree, but you've never really taken it 100% as your responsibility. And that's huge. It's difficult and intimidating, I suppose. But that's how it always was. So why shouldn't it be that way now?
What's the anxious thing or the fear thing or how is that going to work?
Basically, what are you, do you fear anything about unschooling your kid, or are you scared?
I fear that I'm not going to do it right, I guess, societally.
Do it right.
Do it right, exactly. I don't want my kid to suffer because I'm not completely sure of what I'm doing. So I think that this conference is going to help a lot with maybe some of the insecurities that I have about myself.
What do you see for Alex for the next 5 years?
That's a good question. I see him growing and his brain expanding, and hopefully he'll have a more diverse idea of what life is all about and what education can be, and he won't be so stuck in the patterns like some of the kids that go to public schools. They have this regimented routine, and that's just how it has to be, and if you interrupt that, then they're not okay with it. And so I'd like to see Alex just have a lot more freedom of his own mind and of his own independence.
Honestly, my biggest thing I hope I see is just a free thinker. I can't stand when you ask a kid, why do you do something, and they say because somebody said so. I think you don't learn anything when you do that. You don't really understand what's happening. You were told. You're following directions. Directions aren't learning. I want him to explore and fail and achieve and learn from that and really learn it. I mean, actually make mistakes and learn from those mistakes and be allowed to make those mistakes, which isn't really allowed in the school systems the way we have it. Failure is the best way to learn, and I really, really hope that he, in 5 years, will say, oh, well, I did that wrong, but let's try something else, and not get discouraged and not just assume that he's going to fail every time.
Well, anyways, have you ever had a time where it's almost Christmas, it's Christmas Eve, and you're trying to sleep, and you can't stop thinking about it's Christmas and what's going to happen tomorrow, so you can't sleep? Mm-hmm. That's either excitement or fear. Now, those can happen right before you unschool your kid. It can happen basically while you're...
I think I'm having a little bit of both of that, right?
So,
thank you so much for sending us. We definitely are going to soak up the whole experience and let you know how it goes for us.
woo!
Woo! Yeah!
Thanks, Taylor. I'm here today with Julie Taylor, who's back from the Unschooling Conference. Welcome back. How's it feel to be home?
Good, but I'd love to be there more.
How was the conference?
The conference was great. There was so much acceptance and happiness and joy. I felt like I was at home with the family I never had.
So you were telling me last night that when you first walked in, you were talking about hair colors. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So I've always felt in my family or whatever that I'm not really a normal type of person, but when I walked into the conference, I felt like I was very socially normal because there were so many people with so many different colors of hair, whether it was older women, younger people, babies had different hairstyles and different hair colors. It was just amazing that they all embraced this originality of themselves, and it freaked me out, I'm not going to lie.
So what was your highlight of the event?
My highlight of the event had a lot less to do with me, but more with my son, who at times can be hyperactive, and I get a lot of criticism because he's so hyper and he never calms down. But he was completely embraced there. He was at home. He felt completely comfortable in his skin, and he made so many friends in that short amount of time. I felt horrible having to leave all of those people.
How did Greg handle it?
I think he embraced it faster than I did. He went to a lot of the dad's groups and got a lot of good information. The first night he was a bit hesitant, but the last night that we were there, he was barefoot walking downstairs with the rest of the dads, hanging out with the kids, playing board games, really enjoying himself.
So how was the hotel staff? You said there were some new rules this year that weren't there,
Right.
heard weren't there last year?
There was rules of you couldn't put names and stuff on the doors for security purposes. They didn't want people to know who was in the rooms. And a lot of people were actually disheartened by that. There was a lot of comments of like, that's silly, but okay, we'll follow the rules. Because you can't have no rules everywhere you go, unfortunately. And they also said no kids could be barefoot downstairs in the lobby, which is connected to the conference center. So, like, basically, if your kid wanted to be barefoot, they had to wear shoes through this 50-foot stretch, but then they could take their shoes off. So I thought that was silly and strange, but I guess they have rules for a reason. The staff was great. The first day that we checked in, we had a really great guy at the front desk. He was super helpful, and they were all friendly to all the kids. None of them got super frustrated. They even took some abuse from people that weren't with the conference. And
What was the single most shocking thing that when it happened, you were like, I can't believe that?
I don't know that there was a single most shocking thing, but at our first breakout session, we were in there, my husband and I, Alex was playing in the toy room, and he came in, and nobody even cringed or batted an eye, which I thought was amazing, because, when a kid walks into a meeting, it's like so taboo other places. And then he came to tell me what he was doing, and after he told me what he was doing, he walks in the middle of the circle and does like cartwheels, completely in the middle of this whole thing. And instead of people going like, oh my gosh, your kid is so distracting, they cheered for him, and they were like, good job, buddy, those are great cartwheels. So I really enjoyed seeing that for him.
Yeah, no kidding.
And for me, because I'm used to getting the other end of it.
What was the one thing that once you got some of it, you were like, I need some more of that? Like conference session or kids laughing or people playing music or what?
Just the fact that everybody was happy. My husband and I spoke about it. There wasn't any fights. Families were happy to be around each other. From young kids to older kids, the adults, the teenagers didn't care that their parents were at the dance with them. They didn't care that their parents were around. And it was so nice to see that, because there's so much of a disconnect in today's society that I always fear that my kid's going to grow up and be like, God, I can't stand my mom. And it's nice to see that through this type of education and this type of lifestyle that you are really integrated into your child's life, because you're listening to them and they know that you're trying to understand them.
Do you have any fears about unschooling now, looking forward to the future that you maybe didn't have? Or what are your fears right now? Anxieties you may have?
I don't really have any anxieties now at this point about unschooling, because I think one of my anxieties before, and now that you mentioned that, I think it was I doing the right thing for my son? Was this actually going to help benefit him education-wise? And you see these kids and they've been like homeschooled or unschooled their whole life, and what society would look at them and say like, that's a punk, or that kid has no idea what real life is about. But if you sit down and have a conversation with these teenagers with their mohawks and their purple hair or whatever, they're really brilliant. And so it gave me hope for my son. Like, I am doing the right thing. I am going on the right path. And what's best for Alex is what's ultimately best for me.
Cool.
So I don't have any fears about the unschooling anymore. And they said, like, that feeling of, well, is he playing too many games? Is he doing too much stuff? Like, that stuff is normal feelings, and you just have to kind of push that aside. So that was a good thing for me.
Has your relationship or thoughts about your close family support changed in terms of what you want from them or what you want to tell them?
I think I have more of a social aspect of it that I could share with them. While I was sitting down there with my husband and we were watching all these people go by, my husband and I both are like, this would be great for Tracy. Like, she's not against it, but she's been raised traditional like me as well. But
Tracy's your sister?
Tracy's my little sister. And I'm like, this would be great for Tracy and Rob. These are their people. Like, this is exactly the way that they want to be living their life, but are being told that they can't be living their life that way. So I think that next year I'm gonna bring her with me. I don't know, if it's your first conference, don't expect anything, because when you walk in, even if you aren't expecting anything, it's never gonna be what you expect. But it's gonna be amazing if you're open to the experience.